Hi everybody, it's Rob here from Glas Data, and today I'm going to show you how to share data between accounts. So I'm just going to log into my account here, and you'll notice when I log in that I don't have anything on the dashboard, but that's okay because today we're going to be going straight into the My Data section and looking at the raw information itself. Now, before we get started, there's just a couple of things to mention. The first is that your data always remains under your control. So you choose who has access to it, and at any given time, you can also choose to remove access. So you can give as many people as you like access to your system, to your data, and then remove them whenever you need. And the other thing to bear in mind as well is that there are different permission levels as well, which we'll go through in a second. But you can give different people different levels of access to your information. Now, in this account, I've got just two topics, and for more information on topics and assets, because we're going to be talking about them quite a lot in this video, do go and check out the relevant video on our YouTube channel. But in this account, I have two topics, and we're going to be sharing data from external temperature. And if I go into external temperature, you can see I've got two assets. One's called main and one's called other. And the other one's just completely empty. And then there's some interesting data here in the main asset. So to begin with, we'll start at the topic level. If you want to share information, all you've got to do is either go to the More menu here, or actually easily you can just right click on the card, and then you want to select the Share option, which is just about 5 options down here. And then you'll end up getting this dialog here, and it's very, very simple. All you have to do is type in the email address of the registered user with whom you want to share data. Now, it's not going to give you any suggestions because that's potentially a security risk. So if you do type in a wrong email, for example, wrong@email.com, you're going to get this message here, unable to find user. So you do have to know ahead of time the email address of the registered user. But then all you have to do is type in that email address, so demo@glasdata.com, for example. And if I share that, you can now see that a couple of things have happened. First of all, I have this row in the share dialog, which lists the user, the access level they have, and then there's also an option to remove that user as well, to stop sharing with them. And if I close this, you'll see that we also now have a little share dialog with next to the on the card for the data that's been shared. And if I go into it and see the assets, you can see that each individual asset also has a little share dialog on it as well. So if I go back into here, and let's have a look at some of the more kind of fine-grained access controls as well that we have. So I'll just open up the share dialog again, and I'll remove demo. And you'll see that underneath the text bar for the email address, there's two other options. There's this option to share locations, and then there's a select permission level. Now, if at any point you want a little bit more information, you can just simply hit the question mark buttons next to each other, and you'll get an explanation for what this option is doing. But simply put is that if there are any location files which are associated with the assets in this topic, now again, if that's confusing, see the relevant videos, but essentially you can link data to maps. So you might have 10 temperature sensors, and they all have locations visible on the map. If you'd like to share those locations as well, you can simply toggle that button, and then those locations will appear on the target person's map as well. By default, it's switched off, so you won't be sharing that. So just remember, if you do want to do that, to turn it on. And then the next one is the permission levels. Now, by default, this is set to read only. And what this means is that when you share data with another person, they're going to be able to view that data. They're going to be able to create charts out of that data. They'll be able to see it on a map, and they'll be able to create alerts from that data. But they're not going to be able to modify it or delete it or do anything except read it. There are a few other levels as well. So we have event read write, and if I just quickly go into the table for you, these rows in the table are what we call events. Now, if you give someone an event read write permission, that means that they're going to be able to edit the data, so they're going to be able to change these values, and they're also going to be able to delete individual rows. Now, they're not going to be able to rename columns, add new columns, rename assets, something like that, but the actual individual readings, they're going to be able to modify. Now, the other levels that we have here, if we just go back into the share dialog, we've got asset read write and topic read write. So these are very, very similar. Asset read write is exactly the same as event read write, except now the user can also delete and rename assets as well. So these are the actual physical cards. So let's say you've got 10 devices and the user you share the data with decides he doesn't like one of those devices, he'll be able to delete it. And it's the same with topic read-write, as that's essentially access to absolutely everything. So if you give someone topic read-write permissions, they're going to be able to change columns, create new columns, delete the entire data set. So it's very, very, you get absolute every access level to all of that data. By default, this is set to read-only, and we do recommend that you keep this at read-only unless you have a very specific requirement to give someone more permissions. If you would like to share only one asset, so you notice that when we shared this external temperature a minute ago, then both of these assets were shared with the demo at Glas Data account. If you'd like to just share a single one, you can go into the topic itself, look at the assets, and you can just right-click on the asset that you want to share, and you can do exactly the same thing, demo at glas-data.com, and we can share that. And you'll notice now that only one of these asset cards has that shared shared icon on it. And now this means that the topic itself, oh whoops, wrong card. That means that when you go into my data, you're going to see this share icon on the external temperature card. But then when you go into the external temperature, you're only going to see it on the one card there. And when the other user that you shared with, so in this case demo at Glas Data, goes in, they'll see the topic, external temperature, they'll click on it, but then they'll only see this main card, and this other card will be completely invisible. It won't be accessible to them. And that's really everything there is. If you've got any questions or comments, do get in touch with us or check out our other videos.